Welcome to Remembering You, a space for slowing down, seeing again, and gathering the parts of yourself that the world asked you to forget.
Each week, we wander through stories, ancient, personal, and collective, to explore how perspective changes everything. How what we look at and how we look can open doors to who we truly are.
Take a breath, feel your feet.
You've arrived.
Let's begin remembering you. Everybody have fun tonight.
Everybody have fun tonight.
I feel like we are done with that 5-part series. Now that we've studied, we get to go outside and play for recess.
Let's have fun. Let's skip and jump and dance.
Yeah, this one's gonna be a bit, I don't know what word to use.
Yes. Outside of vernacular. Welcome back, friends, to Remembering You. Thank you for joining us today with
Alison
and Ryan as we talk about the ways science and mysticism and everything in between helps us understand ourselves and the greater world outside.
Yeah. So one of the more, I don't know, profound might be a good word for it. Like one of the things that we've noticed, and of course, something that Ryan and I have felt rather deeply in our own lives is how our relationship to uncertainty and paradox and mystery shifts and changes as we've gained more experience and, you could say perhaps grow in cognitive complexity. Mm-hmm. So in earlier stages, or I think in early in life, uncertainty feels pretty uncomfortable. Like I think our egos, just, our sense of self, like we like to have control and predictability. And, we're taught like you got to work hard and that's what creates good outcomes. And of course, that is true to an extent. Like we do need to plan, but there's this way in which that can start to break down or we can overdo it. Mm-hmm. And I think as we move forward in life, and especially once we shift into a fourth person perspective, mystery stops being such an enemy and it becomes something like a friend. So we start to sense that, life isn't maybe something that we have to wrestle into submission. And for me, this arrived just as a necessity because I was tired in a way that I could not put into words. And, whatever it is that we believe, whether that is that we've got to like grind and control, or if we're a believer in surrender and following our passion and letting things unfold, there's this way in which life will reflect back to us exactly that. Like whatever it is we think we need or is going to happen, that's exactly what's going to keep happening. And this isn't just like our own personal insight. There are lots of voices across spirituality and cognitive science and clinical psychology. Teachers like Eckhart Tolle, he speaks of this surrender as a gateway to effortless right action, where we accept the present moment fully and we can allow maybe a deeper intelligence to move through us. And there's lots of others. We'll talk about maybe who some of those folks are. And we'll try to look at this from a lot of different perspectives. And we're going to share some of our own stories because that's just fun.
And we have some stories.
We do. Yeah. I mean, our hope is that it's in a sense a way to or like an offering of an alternative perspective to relate to life, especially if you're somebody who's, Like if you feel like you are banging your head against a wall or you're just grinding and you're tired and it's not working anymore, there's a reason why.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important to normalize that as an experience, because I think a lot of people are feeling it, but then also to normalize maybe some things that might sound a bit woo or supernatural, even
fantastical,
yeah, to the kind of conventional mind, and so I think a lot of people have experiences that they don't know how to explain, and so we just want to normalize those two.
And I think it's appropriate as well to just name that we aren't selling anything.
Oh God!
Like
no,
there isn't something. I've gone down that path. I know what it's like to invest years and years into education and then towing a party line and only being able to speak one truth, maybe one lowercase t among the big uppercase T. And so that being a part of a system, a religious way of filtering experience, and then leaving that system and stepping out of that system and realizing that there were some good things that I brought along with me, but I don't have to toe a party line in order to have a paycheck. So what I'm doing is I'm naming past biases, and I'm also recognizing that I don't have a bias that you as our listener or even you as my life partner have to buy into my perspective or experience.
So in other words, you don't need somebody else to validate whatever it is that you think is true in order to accept and grow and like move forward with them, or to have is that what you're saying? Spoken
like a true psychologist. Yes.
Yeah, I have a very specific filter. Yeah.
And I still carry with me the beauty of the tradition that I grew up in and invested half of my life into.
Well, and it's interesting, like what dawned on me as you were saying that was I had the same thing just in the scientific paradigm. Like there was the education and there's the way that you but just the way that you're taught to think about this is how experience unfolds and this is what is true and this is how you figure out what to do next.
There's boundaries.
Yeah.
Stay in the boundaries.
Right. Like, you follow the rules because the rules are there not just to keep you safe, but like so you know how to orient and so you can be successful. It's almost like this is the recipe. And so follow the recipe. But you do it for long enough and you start to recognize that like it's limited in its successfulness or its applicability. And I think inevitably life takes us to a point where whatever the recipe is that we've been handed kind of stops working.
What a gift.
It is it doesn't feel like it at the time though. It feels terrible. feels existentially awful.
So we're diving in the deep end, and it is going to be a fun ride. Thank you for listening. And as you're listening, we just want to plug a little moment of reflection, or give you an opportunity as you're listening to our stories and presenting this. Feel where it's landing in your experience. And maybe you have some similar or adjacent stories or experiences, and just be thinking, what is this stirring up in me, and how do I relate to it?
Oh, yeah. Thank you. That's a great, always Oh, that's a great pointer.
As we continue, our hope is to offer an alternative way to relate to life, one where we don't have to pre-plan every outcome, but instead live fully in each moment, update our path as we go, and trust that following passion leads to outcomes for better than we could have ever engineered on our own. And we're going to point at this at many different ways.
Mm-hmm. So maybe let's start with a story that sounds kind of crazy, because this is where we get to have fun. And I, it's funny, I'm having a hard time figuring, like, God, which one do I choose to start with? When I was like 21, maybe, 2021, one of the two, I was at Iowa State University, and I was doing this meditation practice as a way to help me fall asleep at night, and just as a way to kind of unwind from the day.
Wait, which university?
Iowa State.
Go Hawkeyes.
Go. No. Cyclones.
Go Cyclones.
University of Iowa is the Hawkeyes. Bad. Boo.
Oops. Strike that from the record. Cut that out.
I was at the better college. Anyway, I actually don't care about sports at all. So I'm laying in my bunk bed, and I don't know where I had heard about this because I didn't really know how to meditate at all. Anyway, I must have read somewhere, heard on the radio. I mean, there weren't podcasts back. This is 1998, 99, somewhere around there. So the meditation was to just, as you're laying down, imagine you are on a kind of like a floating carpet, and you make the color of the carpet change through the colors of the rainbow. So you start with red, and then you go orange, yellow, green, blue, and you go violet. And you're supposed to, like, however long it takes for you to feel the red. And so, I'd lay there and just kind of imagine, the red, I don't know, soaking into my skin and my bones, and letting the maybe the vibrancy of that color just evade all of me, just resting into it. And then it would shift to orange. And I would also imagine myself kind of floating down. So, I'm just relaxing and surrendering. And I had been doing this every night for probably a couple of months. And one night I'm lying there and I'm doing my little meditation. And then suddenly I am on a plateau, like a vast expanse. It's dark out. There's a full moon. I can see a forest at the edge of the, kind of back from the field that's at the edge of the plateau. And there's an ocean behind me. And I am hovering above the ground in a white flowing robe. And I am slowly spinning backwards in the air, like doing back bends in a circular motion. And I made it all the way through one full revolution, and I was about halfway through my second one when I was there. Like it was not, so this is not a dream. Like my whole body freaked the fuck out. I had no idea what the hell was going on. And so the fear kind of snapped me back to in my bed. And I remember laying there thinking, like, what the hell just happened? I have never in my life experienced anything like that. Not before, and honestly, not since. And at that time, I didn't have any way to make sense. I didn't know of anyone else who had ever experienced something like that. This wasn't part of my worldview. And so I just kind of forgot about it for a very, very long time. It would come to mind every once. It was like, oh yeah, you remember that one time when you were like floating in the air?
Like you do.
Like you do. But I didn't. But it would, it would just kind of like bubble up into my consciousness, and then I'd just be like, yeah, okay, well, cool. I didn't know what to do with it. So it sort of fell by the wayside until more recently, so we talked about in the fourth person perspective episode, the way the collective takes on kind of mythic proportions. Like we suddenly can attune to and feel a whole lot of information that we just haven't had access to before. Mm-hmm. And that was I recognize now that was a step towards understanding what it was happened to me back in my 20s. And through like lots of psychedelics and I've had so many little moments that I cannot explain with my conscious mind, or my rational mind, I guess I should say, that I'm starting to understand. And I think
sure
you're probably going to hear me a lot in this episode, just in a way, talking about this is also a way for me to help myself understand. And I think the word that I would use now for that experience then is astral travel. Mm-hmm. Which, if me 5 years ago heard me say that, I would be like, this bitch has lost her mind. She crazy. And, I'd probably switch to another podcast. And, and so if you're having that reaction, that is totally fine. I get it. So the idea of astral travel, I think, is one of those things that sounds bananas if you've never experienced it. And if your version of what is true is, reality is anything that I can taste and smell and that I can see with my eyes and that I can test in a lab, and anything beyond that is insane. And that is just simply not the way reality is.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
There's so much more. Mm-hmm. And, you could point to like Hindus or the Chinese. So we've got cultures who have existed for thousands of years who are very aware that like we have a subtle body and we have an astral body. Like our bodies are more than just, this physical flesh and bone. And that we can gain very direct, visceral access to it in a way that is just as real as me sitting right here now on this couch with this microphone in front of me. What do you have to say about that?
I have a couple things that are coming up.
Okay.
One is a question. Were you under the influence when you had this experience?
Oh, no. I was, I'd had a regular day going to classes, and I didn't do drugs then. I drank every once in a while. Like I'd have, a beer or something, but no, I was totally sober.
I think it's important for us to note that all of the stories we'll be telling are stories that we experienced while we were sober.
For the most part. I do have some that are under the influence, but
okay, well, go ahead and make sure you
we will qualify those.
Tag those.
Yeah.
Just for our listeners. And then one of the other things that popped up was the way that you see things in your mind or don't see things in your mind.
My aphantasia, you mean?
Yeah. Say that again.
Yeah. So I have what is called aphantasia. So if aphantasia, I'm not sure how you pronounce it. It comes from it's two Greek words put together, which means no imagination. So when I imagine, so it doesn't mean that I don't have any imagination. It means I don't think visually. So when you tell me to close my eyes and imagine an apple, I can imagine an apple, but I don't see anything. Like everything behind my eyes is completely dark. Has been, as far as I'm aware, my whole life. Apparently, it's just a neurological difference. It's estimated about 10% of people have aphantasia, can't see anything. And I always thought it was like just a metaphor my whole life. Like I didn't realize that this is actually something I had until maybe within the last year. I was reading some article and it, gave a little visual description of like what people see behind their eyes when they imagine something. And the vast majority of people see a varying degree of like with crispness and clarity, whatever the image is. For some folks it's fuzzy, for some folks it's kind of black and white. Other folks can see things with super detail, like in the same way that they see objects with their eyes open. And I always thought it was just a metaphor because I close my eyes and you ask me to imagine something and it's just black in there. Always has been. So anyway, I do still dream. Like I have I dream visually. But that experience, I was awake. It was not a dream. It was a very, very different, like it felt as though I had been transported. Like it was just as real as me sitting here now. And so this is interesting because I don't see anything with my, so it was also not just like me imagining something, because I can't do that.
Yeah. That's what I wanted to point at.
Right.
About how you related to that experience. The other thing that's coming up is your physical trauma response to
the way I freaked out.
Yeah, to slowly spinning backwards.
Yeah.
Like that is a childhood trauma trigger. So say a little bit more about that, if you would.
Sure. So when I was 3, I fell through a floor. So if you listen back to the episode, My Story, you've heard me say this. I fell through the floor of our second-story home when I was a kid because it was under construction. And I landed on a flight of stairs below and had a severe concussion. And they life flighted me down to Des Moines and put me in a medically induced coma to help with the brain swelling for, I think, like a day or so. And then I spent maybe 10 days roughly in the hospital, but they didn't think, before they really knew the severity of the brain damage, they told my parents, like, she might not be able to walk. She might not be able to talk. Like, it was a profound brain injury. And I, ever since then, don't like the feeling of falling or of floating. Like sometimes I'll even swimming, sometimes like being suspended in water can sometimes make me a little uncomfortable. So, it's changed. I've been working with that trauma, it's kind of, as they say, stored in the body. But it's still a thing. It's still something I'm working through. So yeah, I'm surprised I even managed to hang with it for a full revolution. So it was maybe 10 seconds long. Like I'm surprised I even lasted that long. Yeah. I think, I could make all kinds of meaning about why that happened then, but the way it's been a huge touchstone for me. So when I started our meditation training a few years ago, of course, in meditation, they just ask you to stay present to the moment and, to just rest in the present moment. And there's a way in which doing that feels like falling for my nervous system. And my nervous system would freak out because I was, I was surrendering or attempting to, but I was also experiencing, I don't know, downloads, or I was just feeling my subtle body in a way that my rational mind could not control or make sense of. And so I would kind of freak out. But then I would also just try to stay present to the reactivity. And that memory of that experience in my college dorm room bed would come to mind almost as like a little reminder from the universe to say, just trust, there is more here than meets the eye. So I now,
I love that.
I interpret it as a gift that, like some folks will say it's your higher self or your soul, or, and of course I'm not attached to any one sort of definition about, like, I don't genuinely know what to think about whether or not we have a soul or a higher self, or I recognize them as helpful definitions to give us a way to relate to what it is that we can feel. And so maybe, that was like my higher self just kind of giving me a little taste that then I could plug into later in life to help me relax and open and trust. That's kind of how I relate to it now.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
But I would argue between the two of us, I mean, not that we're, in a race or anything, or in a competition, but I think between the two of us, you are someone who has been much more in touch with, I don't know, whatever you want to label is beyond the world that we can see with our eyes and, hear with our ears. Because you are also somebody who is a highly sensitive person. And I have a feeling that that's played a big role in your life. And so I would like, one, do you want to speak to what it's like to be a highly sensitive person? And then two, do you want to share maybe one of your stories for folks?
Sure. Being a highly sensitive person means that external stimuli can be overwhelming, and that can be light, that can be sound, that can be spatial, it can be energetic if there is a big experience. Someone is angry or distraught or swinging way in a particular direction. As a highly sensitive person, I have had to learn to manage my own sense of self and boundary my experience, and have a very clear definition of this is me and this is not me. Which is curious because when we start talking about spiritual, other phenomena kind of stuff, the sense of self can get blurred pretty quickly within a lot of conversations. And so being a highly sensitive person, I will feel sometimes very minute communications or shifts or feelings. Sometimes I can even sense what someone is thinking. And in those moments, it can feel like I'm not sure if I'm thinking that or if they're thinking that. And so what is my truth? What is my ground? What is my center?
Yeah.
Which is great now as an adult who has done a lot of work around that. But different times in my younger years, it was pretty intense and overwhelming.
Oh gosh. I mean, childhood is intense enough. Like I kind of can't imagine. Yeah, you've done an incredible job.
I would say I'm quasi-functional as an adult.
I think the only thing that I would add is what I found interesting about high sensitivity is it's thought to be so science understands it as a genetic variant that exists not only in humans, but across every species of animal that they test. And so there are, like, in every group of, whether it's cows or dogs or, I don't know, lizards or humans, there is about 20%, and it's about the same proportion across species. So there's about 20% of people who are picking up on way more information. So, I think it's important to name that our brain fundamentally is just a filter. And it's, you right now, wherever you are, there are sights and sounds and sensations and smells and all the above that you are filtering out unconsciously and automatically. And that's a good thing. Like, we couldn't function very well. But it's almost like high sensitivity people, like your gate, like, I don't know if it's just you've got like a bigger gate or like a bigger input, or there's just less filtering, or both. Like, I don't quite know how to frame it, but.
Yeah, so this can be, what you're pointing at is a blessing and also a curse.
Yeah,
if you think of it as a box of crayons. Yeah. There are 64 crayons in a small box. And then you can buy the 120 box of crayons. Yeah. And so there are times where it's hard for me to know what color I'm using, or which color is appropriate, or which color is coming through, because there's a bunch of shades. Yeah. Versus just a few primary colors. Yeah.
I like that metaphor. So what kind of seemingly supernatural or fantastical story do you think would be a good one to share?
You pointed at my experience and said that maybe I have more experience in this field or in this area. Yeah. And I think one of the reasons that may be true is because I had a framework to fit my experience into as a child. So as I had spiritual or supernatural type feelings or impressions or insights, I had the map of the Hebrew scriptures or the Greek scriptures to kind of filter that onto. So when I would be in a particular setting, and I'm a very visual person in my imagination, and sometimes I'm seeing things in my mind's eye as my eyes are also seeing things in the 3D world. Yeah. And that could get a little bit trippy. And so for me to be able to find some sort of ground in that experience, I was able to go to examples in the Christian scriptures where someone had a vision. Yeah. So they're walking along and all of a sudden an angel appears. And it's kind of this hologram that is showing up in their experience. They're still seeing the 3D world around, but then there is this new dimension. And I would define that as the God realm, the spirit world. Jesus said the kingdom of heaven is within you. And so there is this thread in my childhood experience that was directly connecting me to past experiences that were explained through the Christian tradition in some form or fashion. So it was taught to me as a child that God literally speaks to us in an audible voice. And so when I had moments where I was hearing a voice, I knew how to filter it through. Is this God speaking to me, or is this the devil speaking to me?
Oh, sure.
And there were very clear cut and defined examples of this is how you tell if it's the voice of the enemy, because the enemy has come to kill, steal, and destroy. And so if this voice is moving me in that energetic direction, even in the smallest way, then obviously that is of the devil. But if it is moving me towards faith, hope, and love, then that obviously is the voice of the divine. So all of that to say that when I would, either in my own experience or interacting with others, have a vision or a picture or a word or a sound come up in my experience, I would have a very simple and clear-cut way to define, is this good or is this bad? So when I'm in Bible college and seminary is when I had an experience come online where I would go on walks with fellow students. Oftentimes it was a accountability or a prayer partner. And as we're walking, we're talking about our experience and what's going on in our lives. And oftentimes way before the walk and the conversation ended, I would have a very clear picture or a couple pictures in my mind in relationship to what they had said or what they were going to say. And the expectation within this Christian education was when you go on a walk with your accountability partner, at the end, you pray for one another and bless one another in the challenges that they're facing in their life. And so oftentimes I'm just being present to what they're saying and feeling what their experience is. And then my response would be the pictures that I received. And I would just talk out loud or pray the pictures that I was seeing in my mind's eye or had been seeing over and over again. And it was fascinating to watch how people responded to those pictures, because the pictures oftentimes were going beyond into a deeper space than what they had been originally either aware of or able to share or communicate. It was, now I would use the language of I was dropping into a place where I was feeling their psyche. Yeah. And below their awareness of consciousness, and maybe even in the shadows of what was true in their experience, and bringing it either up or sharing some light. And by nature, I'm a very positive, upbeat person. And so I would always frame it as something that is becoming, something that's growing, something that is evolving, changing for the good in their experience, even when it was something that was painful or scary or uncertain. And it was a beautiful, beautiful gift to have that experience. And I got feedback over and over again that, wow, how did you know that? That was exactly what I needed.
You've done that with me now countless times. Like it is hard to put into words how it feels. It's like you are speaking something that is true at a level that I don't have words for. I mean, it just lands with such, and it always feels like a relief or like an opening or a recognition. You know, that moment, like if you've ever had the experience of, you know, trying to figure something out and you're wrestling with it, and then there's that insight. Like insight has a very particular kind of feeling, and yours always feels like that, and yet more. Like it's not just like there is a way in which cognitive insight can feel that way, but this is like cognitive plus embodied plus emotional plus, you know, whatever else. So it's just that much more impactful.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's what's true in my experience.
Yeah.
I think in my unfolding of trusting a gift, maybe I could use that word. When I was pastoring a small church, I had a family that would attend, and they had a couple children, and this lady would sit on the front row with her family, and she always had a notebook. And she was one of these people that were very flowy and free and
kind of hippie vibe.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
Lot of love.
Yeah.
There was some deep wisdom from nature that she walked in, and also some spiritual giftings. But I had never met someone who had a similar gift to be able to look at, or had cultivated the experience of seeing things through the gift of pictures. And this particular Sunday, the way that I would prepare for my Sunday sermon is studying throughout the week and preparing, and then Sunday morning before my talk, I would just kind of bring all of my notes together and just kind of sit for a while in quiet meditation, contemplation, and allow a couple pictures to come to mind. And so in seminary, we were taught always have a 3-point outline, because that helps people be able to remember. And instead of having 3 words like we were taught, I would always use 3 pictures. And with those 3 pictures that Sunday morning, it was a rainbow, a pencil, and a frog.
That's delightful.
Now, it's been over 14 years, 13 years since this happened. This experience took place. I can't tell you what the talk was on, but I can tell you that it had to do with those 3 pictures. So she comes in at the beginning, before the service began, and is sitting with her family, and she opens up her little binder or notepad and writes some things down. That was normal. She was oftentimes taking notes. But then she closed it and set it beside her and put her pen on top of it. I didn't notice it or think about it. Things got started. And as I began to talk, and I used those 3 pictures, the look on her face, like her eyeballs were big round saucers. And the service closed. Everyone's leaving. I'm greeting folks. And she comes up to me and she said, when I got here, I sat down and I wrote in my journal, and then I closed it, and I haven't opened it until I'm going to open it right now with you. And I'm looking at her. I'm like, okay, what's going on? And she opens it, and across the top of her page was written the words rainbow pencil frog.
Stop it.
And I looked at her and she said, thank you for your words this morning.
Aww.
And just turned and left. And
Aww.
I think I gave her a hug. It was almost it was an affirmation that I wasn't alone in the way that I see what is going on around me. She is a beautiful soul. Even though we don't live near one another, I send her love from time to time, and I can feel when she's sending me love from her and her family.
That's beautiful. So you said something there about that you can tell when she's sending you love from afar.
Mm-hmm.
That ability or awareness turned on for me.
Pause real quick. I think it's important that you're calling it an ability or an awareness.
Oh.
I referred to my experiences within the context of a gift.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So within my Christian upbringing, there were certain spiritual gifts. And without even thinking about it, I will revert back to that language.
Sure.
So parents wanted their child to feel like they have a special gift from God and would live up to or live out that specific gifting, which is beautiful.
Sure.
Until it's not. And I now adopt the perspective that a way of being or knowing will turn on or will come to life or will rise to the surface of our experience. And I try not to classify those specific things as a gift.
Sure.
Because if I have a gift, then you don't have a gift.
Yeah.
It can be very us versus them.
Yeah. Or superiority kind of thing. Yeah.
Thank you for letting me interject that.
Yeah. No, you're welcome. That's it. That feels like, that feels important.
It is very important.
Yeah. So for me, that awareness turned on around 2020, like 2019, 2020. I had a partner who it was also turning on for him, and our relationship was, it was simultaneously beautiful and terrible at the same time. We both of us had a lot of trauma. We were trauma bonded. We were deeply, deeply trauma bonded. So his trauma just kind of fit perfectly like a little key in a lock with mine, and we would just react to one another. And both of us were really keen on understanding our reactivity. And, so we tried our best to stay present to it and support but ultimately we didn't have enough stability in either one of our psyches to be able to truly deal with that degree of reactivity. However, what was really cool was so we were learning how to attune to our somatic experience, which really just looked like, okay, can I name a feeling? Let's say I'm feeling anxious, and where does this feeling live? I can feel it in my chest. Can I describe it? It feels like tightness, or just like this alarm bell is usually how I describe my anxiety. It feels like a fire alarm going off in my chest. And I can't breathe, and whatever, panic attack. So through that very simple, concrete practice over years, started to, is what I credit to my own increased sensitivity. And then my rather traumatically flavored connection with him. So I lived in a town about 30 minutes away, and I would get just this, what felt like an energetic bomb dropped on my awareness. Sometimes it would be, I'd be in the, so I worked from home, and I could be in the middle of a meeting, or maybe I was just having coffee in the morning, or at the end of the day, unwinding. And I would just, what would land is this sudden awareness that he's experiencing something that is difficult. And sometimes he would be reaching out for support. And I would text him, and I'd be like, did you just, experience blah, blah, blah. I'd kind of describe. And then he'd usually text back, and he'd be like, yeah, I was in, so he had a really great somatic therapist that he worked with. And he was like, yeah, I was in a session with so-and-so. And so at the moment that he's experiencing a huge energetic release, I'm feeling it too. And that happened. And it wasn't just related to his own energetic release. Sometimes he would ping me and send me a thought or a desire or whatever, and I would answer back. And then, we'd text each other and be like, did that just happen? We'd confirm with one another, because for both of us, it felt very fantastical and kind of magical. We just, we'd never experienced anything like it in our life. And of course, so I imagine that's like what you are feeling, but of course you're not trauma bonded with this woman, nor were you romantic lovers. And, so no. It's a very different shape of a relationship, but still fundamentally the same kind of thing. And can you say more about, because you do this with lots of people in your life. So you'll tell me, what you felt into or what you experienced. Can you say more about that? What your experience is like?
Yeah. It's a day-to-day occurrence. Yeah. It just is the experience. And in many settings, so there's some people that I've worked with over the years that were seeking out to grow in a particular area of their life, and they knew or recognized that I had some specific things that were tools that could be used in their support. And so those things were maybe I was directly and in real time communicating what was being seen or felt or experienced. But then in day-to-day, everyday life, it isn't necessarily welcome in our culture today to just start telling people what I'm seeing in my mind's eye or in the spiritual world, or however we want to quantify what that experience is. So one of the moments that I like to share about took place a number of years back, and it was right before Mother's Day, and it was with a hospice patient. She lived alone, and her family was really concerned. There was something, and they couldn't figure out what it was. as she was declining and ready to pass away, her diagnosis was dementia.
Mm-hmm.
And she wasn't able to articulate what was causing fear or anxiety or stress in her experience. And the last few days before she died, she was very anxious up until this point. And that point was, as I visited with her, I was the only one in her room, and she was nonverbal. She wasn't opening her eyes. But when I touched her arm, I could feel that her heart rate, it was changing. It sped up a little bit. So she knew that there was someone there present. And I provided some spiritual support like I had done in the past, according to her faith tradition, prayer, music, a reading from sacred text. And then I'm just being quiet and listening. And I closed my eyes because I was trying to understand not just what the family's experience was, which they had a lot of anxiety and frustration that, mom is still here and she's suffering, and how are we supposed to care for her and take care of her and all of this. But I was also trying to feel into what is her experience. So I had to separate the family energy and then the patient energy. The family was in another room. And I was able to make a little bubble around myself and the patient as she's laying in her bed. And I saw two figures that were right above her bed, and they were life-size individuals. And if I would have opened my eyes, I would have seen that they were like in the wall, like above her headboard. That's where it would have been in the 3D world. But I'm have my eyes closed and I'm seeing things just from an energetic perspective. So I'm seeing and feeling the energy of the patient, and I'm seeing and feeling and experiencing here are two female figures above the patient. And I asked, not with verbal communication, but from my heart center to the one on the left, who are you? And they responded, I am her mother. And then the one on the right, when I asked, she responded with, I'm her grandmother. And so I then came back into the 3D world and by name spoke to the patient and said, your mother is present with you and your grandmother is also here. They both love you and the way that you cared for your children and your grandchildren. And they just want to, know that they're proud of you for the life that you've lived. And that was all I was supposed to say.
Yeah.
And so I just spoke that from my heart and also with words to the patient. And Mother's Day was 2 days later, and she passed away on Mother's Day.
Yeah.
Energetically, there was a peace or a letting go or an affirming. And then later on, I found out from a family member that they had always gotten the sense that the patient never got the love or the attention or the affirmation or the acceptance from the matriarchs of the family. And so my experience was that energetically they had come back to support her and to provide what she needed there at the end to be ready to cross over.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. I had a friend for a long time, about 10 years before my daughter died. And then for about a year afterwards, I still think the world of her, but it's not really appropriate for us to be in one another's lives at this point in time, probably for the rest of our lives. But anyway, she is somebody who she's probably a highly sensitive person, or just has her whole life been comfortable with the energetic realm, and she's Hindu, so I think also her culture just has a whole lot more understanding of energy and spirituality, and the astral plane, or whatever you want to label it. And it used to make me really uncomfortable because, of course, I mean, practically the entire time I knew her, I was very much an atheist and very much in this route, and she'd just laugh at me. And I'd laugh at her and be like, "Oh, you silly goose," And but she was really instrumental in maybe just normalizing for me those kinds of experiences. So I will tell a story about when my daughter died, and then kind of some things that happened after that she communicated with me. So myself and a small handful of people, maybe half a dozen, who were closest with B, were all present with her while she was transitioning. And so the first thing I will name is like that whole month, from the moment B went into the hospital on December 3rd until she passed on December 24th. And then for about a month afterwards, like I felt it was as if I had walked into another time and space. Like we would be here for hours if I were to tell you all of the things that I experienced that do not make any rational sense, to the kind of conventional 3-dimensional world that we walk around in. So this is just like one small story. So we're all present with B, and B, she had completely surrendered. She was totally at peace. There was a presence about her. I mean, every parent will be able to immediately recognize the way their child feels to them. Mm-hmm. Like that is so this might be a nice little pointer into anyone who doesn't know what the fuck we're talking about. Like if you just bring to mind how your child feels to you, for I think most parents, it's incredibly strong. And of course, one child feels different than another. It's kind of, I think the words we would use to describe it are maybe personality, like that might be part of it. Bianca, her presence, that energetic feeling completely shifted 3 days before she died. She felt like a Buddha. Like that's the only way it was just this, like, I don't know. It was as if her higher self, her transcendent soul, I don't know what label to put on it, but
there was no more resistance.
Oh my God, it was beautiful. Mm-hmm. And so anyway, so her passing was not, hard. We weren't sobbing and, wailing, and, it wasn't, it was painful in a sense that like my daughter is dying. So of course there's that, but it wasn't tortured. And there was a friend of mine who was she was just keeping her fingers on her wrist, just kind of tracking her pulse, just as a way to, and she too has lots of, you could say spiritual gifts. She's very attuned. And so that was just sort of her way of holding and attuning to that level of Bianca's experience. And she was doing it for me, which I was deeply grateful for. I didn't ask her to. She just did it. It was really beautiful. And I was sitting next to B for a while, and I knew I needed to stand up and shift. And so I had another friend of mine just kind of sat where I was, replaced me, so to say, next to B. And I stood up and I went and I stood next to another friend who was her, I suppose, role to play in that energetic experience was more like the boundary keeper, or she was energetically standing further back than the rest of us, maybe like this overwatcher of sorts. And so I just went and I stood next to her. I didn't know why. It was just what I needed to do. And I had been standing there for maybe 5 minutes. And then all of a sudden I just had this overwhelming urge to like take a huge breath out, like this, and I threw my hands up in the air, like both arms over my head, like as a release. And I felt this energetic, like torrent of energy, like this vortex just moving up and out of the room. And the friend who had her fingers on Bianca's pulse, she just looked at me and she smiled and she said she just passed. She's like, her heart just stopped. Mm-hmm. And I just burst into tears. Mm-hmm. And mm-hmm. Anyway, so my Hindu friend, who is very woo-woo, she lived in another state. She lived in Jersey, and this all happened in Texas. And I talked to her the next morning, and she said to me, she's like, oh my God. She's like, so when did Bianca pass? She's like, wasn't it? She goes, it was like right before midnight, wasn't it? And I was like, yes. And it kind of started at around 10. And then, she had fully transitioned by like 11 something. And she's like, I knew it. She's like, she came to me. She's like, oh my God, she's so huge. She's, she's like, and, mm-hmm. and so my friend in Jersey was present with her, helping her pass mm-hmm. over. And she had a whole story, and it was very beautiful. And we cremated my daughter, and I knew that I was supposed to send my friend in Jersey some of her cremains. I didn't know why. I just, and of course I asked her about it, and she's like, I would be honored. And so I did. I sent her a little container of them. And when she got it, she picked them up from her mailbox. And, so her mailbox, she was in this big complex, and her mailbox was at the end. And then there was a steep driveway to get to her condo or townhome. And so she had the cremains in her car, and she drove it up the steep driveway, and she parked the car in her driveway. And, she was like, she goes, I could see Bianca in my back seat, and she was so excited to be in the car with me. And she told me, she's like, I don't want to go inside. I want to stay here in the car. Mm. And I laughed out loud. So I found a note that I had written about this shortly after B died. And I'll read to you what I said. So my friend in Jersey said, B's telling me that they don't want to get out of the car. They want me to leave her in there. And I laughed and I burst into tears, and I said, of course. So Bianca's favorite place, one of her favorite places, was in the car. So when Bianca had locked herself in her room for days and was in a depressive mood, when things were really difficult, when they were ready to come out, they would look at me and say, can we go for a car ride? And And whenever we were riding in the car, like let's say, she had to go to a horse lesson. She loved to ride horses. And she would say to me, why is it so much easier to talk when we're just driving around?
Wow.
Because when you could, her and I could go for a car ride and she would just open wide up. She could talk about how she was feeling. She could work through her emotions. That's what she'd say to me. She's like, why is it so much easier when I'm just in the car? And so what we would, one of our favorite things to do was to just drive through old neighborhoods. We love to look at houses and, we kind of ooh and ah at the pretty architecture. And we'd always stop at Starbucks on our way home because she had a favorite drink and a little treat that she'd get at Starbucks. And especially the last 3-4 months of her life, almost every day we'd go for a car ride. She'd ask me, can we go? And so I'd never told my friend that in Jersey. But anyway, so when she said, well, she wants to just stay here in my car, I'm like, well, of course she does. She loves the car. And she stayed there for about a month before my friend took her out to the Jersey shore and released some of her cremains into the ocean. So anyway, I love that story.
There's so many little synchronicities and pieces of that story that we can't help but say, wow, there's a bigger picture here.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, there may be a little bit of that inner skeptic that's saying, oh, this is just all chance, that all of these things kind of lined up. Yeah. And I want to point to the reality that we create based upon how we see the world.
Yeah, right.
So if I see the world as mechanical and disconnected, maybe unfeeling, maybe unregenerative, there can be this sense of there is no meaning.
Yeah, right.
Versus there may be another part of you that is saying, wow, Alice Ann, this story has so much meaning.
Yeah.
Because it is a way of seeing her story, and it frees you to experience your own story and maybe be a little bit bigger than what meets the eye.
Yeah. Yeah. And I am well aware of, there's a way in which we can get lost in stories in a way that is not generative and helpful. So there's a way in which, what comes to mind immediately, there was a woman I coached at Dell, and she was struggling with daydreaming. And she said to me, sometimes I lose hours. I'll sit down on the couch and I'll just start to daydream. And then suddenly I kind of wake up and it's 4 hours later. And she'd just been kind of lost in a daydream. So there's a way in which we can try to escape our lives or escape reality because we just don't know how to deal with it. And that, I have a ton of compassion for people who are I've been there. I've been in situations like that, or periods of my life where it was just too painful and I didn't know how to be fully present for it. And there is a gift in the mind's ability to help us kind of distance ourselves when things are overwhelming. And so I'm aware of the need to be careful and just compassionate, both with ourselves and with other people, and to be patient, and also to be honest with ourselves. Like, is this way that I'm relating to my experience, is it opening things up for me? Is it creating less suffering? Is it creating more possibility? Or is it keeping me stuck? And life will, I mean, all you have to do is just stay present to that. Just keep asking yourself that question, or kind of like feeling into, you know, which end of the spectrum, so to say, am I on? And life will answer it for you very clearly.
Every time. Just wait.
Yeah.
It's coming.
But the rational mind, I think the way that most of us are taught to navigate life is that we have to, you know, we have to think, and we have to plan, and we have to, you know, consider the pros and the cons and kind of map it all out so we know what's going to happen.
Certainty.
Yeah. We got it. That's our, like, we need to figure it out so we can be certain, so then we can be successful. And of course there is some need to, I mean, we can't just like vibe our way 100% through life.
I am super organized.
Oh my gosh. It's delightful.
And ridiculous sometimes. How much I have to be organized. One of the reasons that I have to be organized is because of being ADHD.
Oh, sure.
And it helps me to have everything in crisp, clean little categories in my head. Otherwise, I get lost really fast. And my parents were very wise in the fact that they recognized that I could have a diagnosis of being dyslexic and ADHD, but that wasn't the story that they wanted me to live from in my experience.
Yeah.
And that would have been a glass ceiling moment for me that I would have probably spent the rest of my life trying to break through that glass ceiling in my experience.
Like if they'd given you that story that you're limited in some way because of the diagnosis.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. If they would, and they pushed back against the professionals in education and then also the medical field in our world as I was a child, and we're like, no, we're going to do some things to help Ryan in this and support him, but we're not going to give him meds, and we're not going to hold him back or put him in a position where he is seeing himself as less than.
Yeah.
So the story that my parents were programming into me was not self-limiting. It was opening up a door to potential in my experience, which I'm eternally grateful.
Oh, it's so wise
for that. And it just points towards how powerful the tapes that play in our head and the stories that we tell ourselves are, and what it does in this moment, and then the trajectory for the future.
Yes. There's a scientist that I have really enjoyed just kind of watching and feeling and reading about. Is Dr. John Vervaeke. He's a Canadian cognitive scientist. He's also an associate professor at the University of Toronto. And so he teaches in the departments of psychology and cognitive science and also Buddhist psychology. But primarily he's a cognitive scientist, and he focuses on the nature of cognition itself with an understand, like trying to, in a very scientific, research-based way, quantify like what is wisdom, like, and what does a flow state mean. And he has one of his major contributions is this idea of relevance realization, which is about how our mind will intuitively filter and connect meaningful information. So he's got this YouTube series called Awakening from the Meaning Crisis. It's like 51 hours of incredible wisdom and research. So if you are kind of a rationalist and a scientist and you need sort of the data, I think Vervaeke is one of these brilliant humans who has the capacity to bridge the rational with maybe what seems like the supernatural. And he himself will talk about kind of his own experiences personally moving into this space in a way that has kind of freaked him out. And, but then he goes and he learns about the science and he can kind of settle himself back down. And so what he names is that, through mindfulness and contemplative practices, so like just resting in awareness itself and having also an embodiment practice. He primarily uses Tai Chi. I think he's taught Tai Chi for years. That we can improve our capacity for insight and for kind of those cascades of knowing. And of course, that helps us solve problems. But it also moves us out of simply propositional knowing, like just the facts in our head, into a more participatory experience with life itself. And, he can, in a very scientific way, explain why, what I would maybe call a download or an intuitive just knowing, it is a valid way of knowing. It just exists beyond, I think, what we're typically taught in school. And he's one of these folks that, for me, is very helpful in giving me some language that is connected to reality and connected to science, and yet is inviting me beyond that paradigm. And so it kind of calms my freak out and helps me open and helps me relax. Yeah.
What I love about Dr. Vervaeke is how he focuses on the meaning crisis in our world today. And if during our conversation here, you have felt any fear or anxiety or doubt or uncertainty, all of these are feelings that oftentimes in our world and in our culture, we try to push away or numb or bypass or jump over or run from. And so just want to acknowledge that there is meaning to be made, however this episode is landing in you, and to be curious about why it may be landing the way that it does. And I want to invite you that if you have your own woo-woo story to, my love, have you ever seen an alien spaceship?
Have I ever seen an alien spaceship? No.
What about a ghost?
I've felt one.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't see, there's that whole aphantasia thing with me.
Sure.
But I've got a few stories about entities. Yes.
I do as well. We're not going to go into those, but just to name that you may have had your own outside of 3D, your five senses were going crazy, and yet your mind wasn't able to necessarily register what the experience was. Take some time and journal about that. Write it down. Put pen to paper and think and reflect on what that was. Maybe you grew up in a religious context like I did, and your first thought, your first instinct is to look at it through the lens of this was God or this was the devil.
Right.
and that's okay. Just be curious and ask some questions about it. You may be in the whole new wave of alien presence in our world today, and that's how you're going to filter an experience that is unexplainable for you. And all of the little nuances that can pop up in between, taking time to write and to journal and to allow pen on paper to unfold your story is a gift that you can give to yourself in processing your experience. And then if you have a close friend and someone that you trust, I encourage you to ask them, have you ever had an experience like X, Y, and Z?
Yeah.
And then be open to sharing about what you have experienced, because that little bit of a door opening may be a gift to someone else, and they may find that you both share some similar experiences that are in the category of unexplainable mysteries.
Okay, so before we go, I had one last story that popped to mind that I want to share, and then we can end this. So for our first wedding anniversary, we went to Seattle. Well, that's Olympic National Forest, and then we ended in Seattle because we wanted to just go see the Starbucks, the original Starbucks, the OG.
Yep.
And we had some lunch at this restaurant that was close by. We'd parked in a parking garage. I don't know, it was like maybe 4 or 5 blocks. And so we went and we had lunch, and then we're walking to the Starbucks, and then we're walking down this road, and there's a sign sticking out of a doorway, and it says psychic. And I had this overwhelming urge, like, we need to go see that psychic. Let's go see that psychic, which is a little unusual for me. Like, I am not somebody who visits psychics. I'm not, it was such an intense, like, we got to go see her. And I said to you, I'm like, what do you think about popping in to go see? And you're like, yeah, sure. Why not? Let's go do it. And so we called, maybe, I forget, or did we walk up
I believe we walked by it on the way to the restaurant. And we ate, and then our rental car was a Tesla, I believe, and we had it charging.
Yeah.
And we got the notification that it had finished charging while we were still at the restaurant. And I walked back over to move it out of the spot because it was clearly marked that if your car is not charging past a certain amount of time, they're going to fine you. And so I was going to move parking spaces. And then I walked by. Yeah. And it was just like, oh, we're supposed to be here. What is going on? This is unusual, because I had never been to a psychic before.
Yeah, right.
And I've also had people tell me that I am psychic. And so it was kind of like, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
It was all just very unusual in that moment. And yet it was all going somewhere.
Yeah. So we go, and she invites us in, and the first thing out of her mouth, she looks at you and she's like, oh, so you're one of 6 siblings. Like, you're one of 6, which is true. You have 5 other siblings.
And she's like, you're the oldest.
Yeah. She knew you were the oldest.
And I'm like, yes, that's true. And I'm looking around for a camera, like where, and then I'm reminding myself, oh yeah, I can kind of do the same thing, and I do the same thing, and this is a friend.
Yeah. Yeah. And so we had our session with her, And it became increasingly obvious the longer we sat there that we were there not for ourselves, but we were there for her. And so do you want to explain why that is? Like, what happened?
So after she named that I am one of 6 and the oldest, she asked a question about what I do.
Oh, yeah.
And she was adjacent to, and pretty correct as to what.
Oh, like she guessed what it was you did? Yeah.
Mm-hmm, yep. And from there, she opened up and shared about being Catholic and having someone in her life, a family member that she dearly loves, come to her and tell her that she is going to go to hell because she is a practicing psychic.
Yeah.
And she is doubting herself and the ways that she shows up in the world and isn't really sure what she's going to do. Mm-hmm. And so there I am sitting next to Alice Ann, and we spent time just kind of reflecting back to her the gifts and the doors that have been unlocked in her life to be able to see and to feel and to hear what is not necessarily present, but is present. And it was a transformative experience, more for her than for us.
Yeah.
By the time we were done.
Yeah, we kind of, I would say we just validated for her, there's nothing wrong with you. You are not, overcome by the devil. That actually this is a tremendous gift that is just very natural for you. Mm-hmm. And that you're not doing anything wrong. And she was very clearly experiencing a lot of heartache about, like, she was really torn. And I think about ready to leave, like to stop. And she named, like, she wasn't, because I think wasn't her mom also a psychic? And so this was, multi-generational. And yet, here's a family member telling her that there's something wrong with her and that she's doing the devil's work. And then here's a practicing chaplain who just walks through her doorway and
loves on her.
Yeah.
It was just,
yeah.
That was our calling in that moment, was just to reflect back to her all of the love and the light that she walks in.
Yeah. I think the important thing to name is, if what we see around us is danger and threat and scarcity and violence, then that is what life will reflect to us. And so it's really important to practice looking at ourselves and others and the world around us with love and openness and curiosity. And the way that things shift in life when we are practicing that way of looking just cannot be put into words. I mean, it changes absolutely everything. So
well put. We really have been conditioned to believe we change the way we feel by changing something externally.
Yeah, right.
And it's an inside job and not an external.
Yeah. Thank you, love.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing some deep stories and tender moments. I am honored to be able to hold space for you and together for our friends in the Remembering You family.
Yep.
If you are interested in going a little bit deeper with your experiences as a human, we want to remind you and point you towards the Circle. We have a growing community online where folks are coming together to experience community and what does it mean for us to unfold in our experience together from all the different perspectives and ways of understanding human experience.
Yep. So check it out on our website, rememberingyou.life, and you'll see the circle right at the top of the page.
Thank you. If there is somebody that has come to mind today that you think it would be a benefit for them to listen to this podcast, please take a moment and share, like, and subscribe. We appreciate y'all. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye for now.
Bye.